partidei. Delgado acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
I don't know the words.
I know, I got one.
Okay.
I'm gonna make it easy for myself though, I warn you now. No, no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. There's no limits. Welcome back to Monday. Welcome back to 3 o'clock. If you're watching this live, you're probably not. I am joined again by cohorts Duncan Casey. We're here to talk about some more genre cinema as we do on It Ain't Broke on Mondays on YouTube. This week we're going to talk about David Cronenberg's 1986 B-movie horror remake, The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. Big favourite of mine. This
Me too.
One of the more kind of mainstream Cronenberg films, though he has, he's gone on to do quite a lot of kind of more serious stuff. Lots of really kind of crazy effects, very memorable body horror stuff. It's the kind of great meeting of Cronenberg's sort of sensibility and a kind of mainstream.
It's the thing, I think.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, I think this is. I don't think many people would argue with you about this being superior to the original one, the 1958 version, which is a good movie.
David Hedison, right?
Mm-hmm.
David. Oh, okay. What's my David Hedison? Because he was Felix Leiter in Live and Let Die and License to Kill, two very different Bond films, and an odd
Sort of
place
carry
out,
over.
especially as the Living Daylights, it had been recast because it was Timothy Dalton, and it was weird having that. They sort of like, he's got that old kind of old-timey sort of, he's almost a Robert Vaughn.
Robert Vaughn,
he's got that sort of, James, over here, James. He's got that sort of.
It's him and Vincent Price.
Right.
Vincent
Yes.
Price
Yeah.
and
Of course.
And actually, because there's The Fly and the Son of the Fly, and the second of these is patterned after It's the Son of a Fly again, which I really like. I really like Son of the Fly. No, The Fly 2.
You're a son of a fly.
You son of a fly, do it. That was like Stroke
Arnie and
Arnold.
Van Damme.
That was Stroke Arnold.
Do it.
I think Brad and I are going to talk about The Fly 2 one day. In fact,
Yeah,
I've had him in this very room and tried to get him to do it, but he wanted to do more prep.
I want to watch it. Maybe because we can do threes now, kind of just, or we need a new mic. We need another microphone, but we're nearly there.
We need another mic so we could have two people off dem couch,
Yeah.
like some kind of low rent chat show. I mean, well, it's already like a chat show, but
Lower rent.
a lower rent chat show.
But yeah, maybe I'll do it.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely. I
I'm
mean, I'm a big fan of that film, and I think it's very underrated. But that is the discussion for another time. We're here to talk David Cronenberg's The Fly. Are you particularly au fait with Cronenberg's other movies?
Not really. No. I mean, kind of yes and no. I'm not really on. Like I wasn't. I'm not. No. I mean, basically.
Okay. I mean, because the big hitters are kind of like Slither, Scanners, Videodrome.
Yeah.
Kind of the big ones. All excellent movies. I'm a fan, and there's more modern stuff. There's things like History of Violence, which is based on a comic by character John Wagner, and Eastern Promises and stuff like that. So he's done a lot more kind of grounded stuff, I think, more recently. He acts a lot. He was in a movie called Last Days, actually, which is kind of about the end of the world, which is quite good, which I've got taped off TV somewhere. I've never seen anywhere else. He's in Jason X, which I like. He directed an episode of Friday the 13th, the TV show. I just found out when I was looking. What was your experience? How did you first see The Fly?
So I can't remember if the cart came before the horse or what, but it was one of those things I want to say as a kid, I probably wasn't. I was probably more like 13, 14, I don't know, something like that. And I taped it off TV and I watched it. And I guess it was a thing I knew about because it would crop up back in the day when I'd buy Empire or whatever and Total Film. It would be, top 10 sci-fi horror films or whatever, and that would show up and it'd be a picture of sort of the mangled fly thing at the end, and I was kind of like, ooh, and then it was on TV. That's one of those. That's back when we used to look through the Radio Times. And,
right.
I even had a video recorder that had like a thing you put a code in.
Video Plus.
Yeah,
Plus,
and it had a scanner. That's right. They had like a barcode. And they had a little infrared thing, and you could scan the barcode.
On your fucking VCR?
Yeah, and it would upload
future Jetsons shit is that?
I know, right? And it would just know what time. It would just be.
I remember the codes, but not the fucking beep boop.
Yeah, they had a barcode on.
Infrared, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So that's until it became sentient and burned our house down.
But apart from that.
But it was. So that's how I came to it. So I watched it taped off the TV, and I hoovered it up. It was just one of those things where I was like, oh, and I had to watch it again and again and again. So I went through a period of about a year of probably just like watching it like mad, and then I haven't really watched it a lot since, to be honest. But I love it. I think it's wonderful. I think it hit me right in the right place at the right time.
It's a shock, this one. I mean, this is my older brother Niall again, who's come up numerous times on this channel. Is that he would always be like, "This is on, we're going to watch it," when we had a TV in our room,
right?
Or "This is on, we're not allowed to watch it, we're going to secretly tape it and watch it when mum and dad are at work," or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was my brother saying we've got to watch this. And my brother also showed me the original Flies. So that was an intro to that. This is, I'm pretty certain, I saw Scanners when I was very young, which gave me fucked up nightmares, and this came afterwards. This is probably the second Cronenberg I saw, and then I sought out other things. It's very much in the Cronenberg style, like I say, but it's got kind of a nice mainstream kind of sensibility. It works very well as a mainstream kind of horror film. Following on from the discussion, the much kind of lighter side of this sort of discussion is we just did Men in Black, and I mentioned in that, so many directors in the 80s were essentially remaking the 50s and the 60s, and it was the 50s B movie, and this is literally a 50s B movie remake, as was The Thing from Another World to The Thing. Yeah. And, on one side of that nostalgia coin, you've got your Spielbergs and your Zemeckis and your Dantes doing their thing with Gremlins and, Back to the Future and whatnot. Even Romancing the Stone as well is going further back as a kind of throwback to serials and stuff. Mm-hmm. These are the 50s B-movie horror coming back,
right?
And you can that started as early as 1978. I think the Philip Kaufman Body Snatchers was doing that,
right.
And that trend come onwards. So these are people who grew up on that stuff and remaking it. I think this is a vastly superior film to The First Flight. The First Flight is lovely, and it is what it is, and it's literally a guy with a fly head. And then
he's under a shroud most of it, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, that's kind of the reveal.
Yeah.
And then it's and oddly enough, in the Joe Dante film Matinee, there's a film called Mant.
Right.
Which is the fly, but it's a man and stuff. This takes a very different approach. It's horrible.
Yeah,
It's because it's about a man playing God. It's about a man playing God, and then when he initially becomes imbued with flyness, he feels as if he's a god. Which the first kind of sharp shock of the film is when he breaks the man's arm. And that's not kind of wacky creature shit, that's a human arm breaking, and you see it, and it's not nice. The bone sticks out and blood pours out and stuff, and that's in the context of him like pulling that woman home with him. He picks up the girl in the bar, and then she's trying to make her go in the pod because it's kind of like, it's allegorical of someone trying to make you take drugs, because I feel great, so you should do it. And
it's very much that. Well, what's interesting, I suppose, about again juxtaposing this to the original is the original was not to bang this drum, but its representation of women in the original is very much like, isn't his wife, again I haven't really watched it all this, but his wife's very much, "Oh darling, come,"
it feels weirdly kind of Mills and Boone.
Yeah,
it's got this strange kind of
whereas I think what Cronenberg's going for is this is very much about the kind of male ego eating itself and the hubris of being ego driven, and you know what I mean, so it's kind of like the fly represents more his inhibitions removed. It's that thing of like
it kind of unlocks his id, really.
Yeah,
he becomes a kind of id creature, and it's about kind of his hubris as well.
And it's more broadly, it's about men abusing their power. This is what I think. It's going off on a wild tangent, but the Superman stories is why the Superman story is so compelling, because actually that's about men, and having physical strength and having power, but abusing it is not that's not. That can, and in this case leads to decay, and because then what are you if you just abuse your power? What are you essentially? And he literally falls apart.
He rots.
Until all that's left is the ego, the representation of the ego, effectively.
That bursts out from within it.
Yeah.
So if you want to, and Cronenberg is very keyed into a kind of psychosexual kind of Freudian thing, and he even did a film about Freud and everything, so
and ultimately it comes down to he needs the woman, is like he puts the gun to his head, wants her to kill him.
And he's also literally going to merge with her at one point, to create this kind of three-headed child man woman beast.
I know.
They kind of represent, and much like The Thing, Carpenter's The Thing, because I think people have retroactively ascribed kind of AIDS to the thing,
right.
which Carpenter has said, like, you're not wrong, but that's not what, it was a bit early for that, and it's not really what we were thinking necessarily.
Yeah.
Whereas in 1986, I can see AIDS in this. It's the guy alone in his loft rotting because he's kind of,
I guess. I guess so.
Well, AIDS is a disease where your body turns on you.
Yeah,
that's what happens to him.
yeah,
His body turns on him.
It's true.
I'm not, going any deeper on that, but it's.
Well, didn't it come about because of bestiality? Wasn't AIDS a thing? Or is
That's
am I reaching?
that's.
Is that just
at some point
urban legend?
HIV appears to have crossed species,
right?
But there's this kind of urban legend that a pilot went to Africa and fucked a monkey, which is just I'm not gonna.
Okay,
I'm certainly not gonna on a public platform. Use
no,
God,
no, please don't. I was just, I was what I was reaching for is that the interspecies.
AIDS is because there's obviously feline AIDS is a thing.
Yes,
and FIV, and it seems to have jumped to humans somehow.
Right.
And there's this kind of what I believe to be an urban myth about someone fucking a monkey.
I guess that comes about.
Someone is dashing to Google right now to post in the comments. More power to you, my friend.
Bearing in mind, it can be transferred by any number of, not just sex. I mean, that was the biggest, dumbest thing about it, is that people thought it was just about sex. And there's obviously a specific type of sex, but it's not that. It's blood transfusion. Isn't that what Kevin Peter Hall died of?
Yeah.
Wasn't it? He had a blood transfusion.
Yeah, blood transfusion. Well, I believe. Well, anyway, that's way off. But I think there's a legitimate discussion for it to be AIDS allegory, and it's about someone's body, or just, I mean, even cancer, because he the point is he's stricken.
Yeah.
He's really stricken, and that's the kind of the thing with it.
But it's self-imposed. It's in this case, it's not entirely. That's where the
like
AIDS
doing drugs or having sex or whatever. You can see he's being punished for his hubris, I guess. I mean, it's very much like Seth Brundle is a hubristic character.
Yeah,
and it's his impulsiveness that leads him to that. And it's he doesn't wait. He does the test on the baboon and stuff, but then he just kind of goes like, yeah, fuck it. And he's someone who is this kind of reclusive, nerdy bloke who suddenly is charged up and confident and kind of more driven by his id. And he thinks the whole thing, because he tries to make does he try and force Veronica into the pod as well, and she's not having it?
I think it's that thing as well of the like I think he's someone, maybe I don't know, maybe it's even a comment on not like lack of self-reflection, and it's actually something we talked about with Taxi Driver as well, that kind of not having outside counsel. And just being like, he's somebody, he lives like Einstein, doesn't he? He has the same clothes, and he does, he's got that kind of super genius, creative, whatever guy. He's evolved beyond the need for like.
Quick link up, and I don't mean to derail you.
No.
That costume is shared by Seth Brundle, Mr. Bean, and Dirty Harry.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I've always, it's this. They are three very different characters.
That's very true.
Occupy that same.
One could say all ego-driven.
True. Yeah.
Mr. Bean's very ego-driven and often faces hubristic consequences.
He's a kind of childlike. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? 'Cause you've kind of got the sort of childlike sprite. You've got the kind of vengeful arbiter of justice, and then you've got the reclusive super genius.
Yeah.
All linked by their preference for black ties, white shirts, and tweed jackets. I mean, you could make that, if you wanted to go purely Freudian, I'm sure you could bend that into id, ego, and superego, if that's the way you wanted to go.
I guess so, yeah.
It's not the hill I'm going to die on, my friends, but you could, and there's presumably some overarching Hollywood conspiracy to make them dress the same way.
Yeah.
This is a Fox movie as well. Interesting. I've just for point of reference, both of these were made by Fox, and it's kind of a nicely untampered Fox film, which is good. Music by Howard Shore, who of course did a few Cronenberg things, and Peter Jackson as well, I think.
Do you think it's is it Goldblum's most well known? It's certainly in terms of him in a leading role, because there aren't actually that many Goldblum films, the big ones, where he's the lead. Like, it seems like he was.
Yeah, because I mean, like, people think of Jurassic Park, but he's kind of not the lead in that.
No, he's not in it a lot.
And in terms of his impact, I don't know. Actually, that's a good point. I mean, it's definitely a movie he's very associated with. Yeah, he did so much, then he stopped, and now he's back.
It seems that way. I mean, I'm sure he's been doing stuff, but it's just.
At Glastonbury, I'm going to go see Jeff Goldblum's band.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
I'm well excited by that. I love you, Brundle. Where you check it? I mean, they might be shit, but it's not the point.
But that's the thing. It's like Kiefer Sutherland and his band. It's like, do you go for the music, or are you going just because you want him to be kind of up there?
You want to see Jack Bauer?
Really? My Goblin's not very good. I'm trying. I am working.
It is. He was doing it before, and it is. I like it a lot.
Well, no, wait a second. So I'm working on it. Yeah, and it's like because I want to see Kiefer. I want to hear what the following takes place. I want to hear that as a song. Like that's But it's but if you listen to Kiefer,
takes place between page 21 and 28 of my songbook.
Now my latest song. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
From my album, Eat the Towel. Anyway, digress. The flight. In terms of its look and feel, it's very much a film of the 80s. But it borrows iconography. I think it borrows a B-movie sensibility, and I think that particularly is represented in the pods.
Yeah.
And the mist from the pods. And the cover's very that classic post with the kind of leg coming out. It's the image of the pod. It's kind of like an insect egg. But it
evokes Alien, doesn't it? I mean, when you look at that, it does.
And I'm sure Fox were probably all over that
true,
as it goes with this kind of blue motif. And The Fly 2 is the same thing, but in green. The way the pod kind of mists things, it does have that kind of 50s B-movie thing, but it very much feels like a film of the 80s because he lives in kind of a brick and mortar loft and stuff. And
he's a sort of not hipster, but he's got.
I think by today's. In today's lexicon, he would be a hipster.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not what it is, but because he's kind of like it's sort of he's kind of like the the hot librarian who lets her hair down.
Yeah.
But the male version, it's like he's a dork, but when he gets flied and takes his shirt off, he's all ripped and stuff, and he's essentially Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
So it plays in a similar kind of way to that.
Goldblum is someone who has a very versatile look in the sense of you can dress him up and dress him down. And this is probably a good example of it. But even he can look super sexy one minute. Like in Independence Day, he looks really cool and sexy.
Even though he's supposed to be a dork.
Exactly.
That is Independence Day.
But then in this, he's like, you can see the appeal of him to Gina Davis's character.
Yeah, he's kind of sexy and mysterious. Talking of, this is going to sound like we're in love with Jeff Goldblum, and maybe we are. The magazine runs an item on him without her permission, and they've got like a painted cover, and I think I can't remember how it looks, but he's like holding the world or something, or he's got holding the pod, and it's like a painted, and it's like a super sexy Jeff Goldblum kind of painting, like the painting Chaos Theory, which the internet loves so much. I think him and Gina Davis also did. Have you seen Earth Girls Are Easy? It's got one of the Wayans brothers and Jim Carrey. God. Anyway, I believe Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum were actually an item.
Oh,
I don't know if they were during this, but I think they were.
Oh, okay.
Regardless of that, I just find the chemistry between them very interesting.
Yeah.
And she is her character, I believe, has a lot of depth and a lot of texture, and you can see, she's stuck between her ex-boyfriend, the editor, I can't remember that character's name. He's just an arsehole. But he does come to her rescue at the end.
That's a really nice thing about that. He's not a sort of 2D character either. He's very much a sort of again, what I love about these sorts of things is that the playing with perspective, because kind of we're seeing it through her eyes. Yeah, she's our surrogate, and so her view of him is a sort of sex pesty pain in the arse. But then it's like, is he actually a good guy? We just don't get to see that until. And they used to have keys to each other's apartments and stuff. They've had this kind of previous life. It sort of twists on itself because Brundle's the new good guy who turns into an arse, and he's the kind of ex-arsehole who comes through for in the end and makes an awful sacrifice to do so. He's horribly maimed, and he's one of the actor that returns for the second film. Right. But he makes a huge sacrifice for her in the end, because it's kind of gross, because he's her boss, and then he's sort of like going like, "Oh, could we just have some sex, please?" And she's just like, "No, fuck off. Give me my keys back." And then at the end, he tips up and saves her. Great performance by him as well. I can't remember his name. But the main thing, you spend so much time with Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum, and in the context of being a couple, because it's like, I think they're lying around in bed after they've just had sex, and then he's like, "Oh, you've got to get in the pod, you've got to try it," and stuff like that. And it's sort of like someone hectoring you into smoking. Well, I tell you what, if you want the kind of allegory, it's sort of like, you sort of hector someone into taking heroin, but you don't want to do it because they've got, he's the diseased one. Yeah. And she can see something's wrong with him and he can't see it himself. So she doesn't want to take the drug and blah, blah, blah. So that, there's that if you want to read it.
Or you could just view it as a fly man, which is valid, you know.
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, again, it's one of those films I think you discover as a kid, and it's just all the gross out stuff that you focus on.
Yeah, it's all about the inside out baboon and the broken arm and, and the pukey acid. And,
the melty hand and exactly, and his dick in a jar or whatever.
Now, is that now? Because that is something that...
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because it's something that people always say, and every time I watch it, I'm kind of like, is that a dick in a jar?
Have you seen a dick? Because if your dick looks like that...
Yeah, you may have problems.
Attached or otherwise, you may have issues.
Yeah, so, do you know what? That, to me, is... Because this was a... probably on Movie Drome or something. I think it was on Movie Drome, actually, with either Mark Cousins or the guy who directed Repo Man. Anyway.
Mr. Black.
Mr. Black. That was a playground thing of like, oh yeah, and his dick's in a jar.
Yeah.
That's when I first heard that. And every time I've watched it subsequently, I'm always... Because I've only got a DVD, I don't have a Blu-ray. To check it out in Ultra 4K.
4K, like zoom in.
There's a bunch of stuff, nondescript bits in jars. I don't remember one of them being a ding-dong.
There's a sort of appendage that could, or maybe...
Yeah, that's the thing. Don't get me wrong. If anyone was going to do that deliberately and with purpose, it would be David Cronenberg. He's a director who's acutely aware of the failings of the human body and metaphor related to the function of the human body.
And ultimately that is, a big signifier of who Seth Brundle is, and for that to fall off, it's like, well, now what? He's a man who dreamt he was a fly, or is he a fly who dreamt he was a man, and all that stuff. It's like, well, that is a big signifier of what and who he is.
Literally, well, it's the castration motif again, and it's super Freudian. If that is there, I'd like confirmation. But if that is there, again, it's Cronenberg is someone who's very aware of the kind of psychoanalytic method. I think, and I feel like much like Hitchcock was as well. So anytime he does something of that nature, it's there. The one I always go back to is the beginning of Vertigo, where James Stewart he's got his walking stick, he's trying to balance it, and he can't keep it up. Because it ties into his kind of emasculation following the traumatic event, and it's all very, it's very film studies. This is what the shit that Toby taught me.
Yeah.
But if he was doing that, he was doing it on purpose. And obviously the decay of the human body as well. I mean, in terms of the effects in this, wow. Like, it's an absolute tour de force of, like... One of my favourite parts is when, like, the dream sequence where she gives birth to the maggot.
Oh, yeah.
Because they do that again in the second film, but it's kind of like a writhing lava pod thing, and I always thought the maggot is way more effective, but I suppose you can't literally have her live out her dream sequence, I guess. I don't
know, maybe, but
you could have done, but it's a similar thing, and then it's like a kind of cocoon and they cut it out. But when she gives birth to an enormous maggot, because that's one of the, there's the baboon being turned inside out, that's fucking gross. There is the arm thing, there's his general decay, there's the kind of acid related stuff, there's when his face bursts open, but there's something about the kind of intra-species activity of a maggot coming out of a woman. It's awful, particularly what maggots are associated with. I
mean, it plays into it's in a similar ballpark of Alien, in that, you've been impregnated with that horrible realization of something's inside of you.
Yeah,
and you don't know what.
Because when she's like, if she goes to her ex, she's like, "You've got to get it out of me. You've got to get it out of me." Like, because she realizes what's happened. Because I think he cuts himself, and then those kind of fly hairs grow out of his back.
That's right. Yeah.
And she kind of feels it on his back, and she realizes that it's this. Very much like Alien. Like, there's something in her. There's something invasive and malignant in her. Yeah, it's it's horrible, isn't it? Like,
it is. Yeah, no, it's very effective, and that's a great way of telling that story. Like, that revelation happening then, not when he's falling apart and looks like a fly necessarily, but like when. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, in a way, a lot of that stuff, because the kind of the end of the film, it goes full goofy B-movie stuff. But it's when he melts the guy's hand and his foot. And
it's like when he finally does fall apart and take on the full fly form, and it's all done in that, like, he's holding a hand and he's intercut with their feet, and then all the close-up stuff falling off. And,
bits of meat coming off and stuff. And oddly enough, kind of like we just did Men in Black last week, or whenever we're releasing these, and we were saying Edgar's wearing that skin suit, and then in this it's a surprise. There was a kind of fly him gestating inside, because like his eye, his eye falls out when the head and that was in him the whole time, with the kind of backwards legs. And
did he know? Like, was he? That's the thing. It's just like I don't know. It's a weird, but again, don't think about it too much. But it is. Yeah, it's a.
He's robbed of his ability to speak and stuff, and That whole scene, man. This is the thing. Like, it's David Cronenberg, right? And like I've said, he's very aware of all this stuff. But ultimately, he has made a good sci-fi horror yarn. You know, if you just want to enjoy it on that level, and it's got, you know, a kind of cathartic third act where it builds up to a fly monster, and you know that's all there, and that's all there to be had. Which is really great, and I think it works on that level. But then you can read into it more if you want to, because it's quite conventionally structured in terms of beginning, middle, end. There's nothing, you know, in terms of its filmmaking, it's Cronenberg. It's a very nicely made, competently made film that's easy to drink in and easy to absorb, and it's not particularly experimental in its edits or camera or anything like that. Or particularly in its lighting, it's got a kind of neo-noir kind of setup to it, but you know, ultimately it's in the business of telling the story of a flyman. Showing as well, though, that I think the setup is that, because you see every time you arrive at his loft or whatever, it's in that real like alley. There's nothing there. It's just sort of like industry that's gone kind of thing, and it definitely feels like a kind of, I don't know what city this is set in, but it's got that kind of rough post-industrial. Yeah, are we saying that, you know, science is now over? I mean, there's probably going to be. Well, he's up and away from it, because the whole thing is he doesn't want to work at a lab. He has to work at home, and he works in secret, and that's why he's this mysterious kind of Frankenstein figure, really. Yeah. Because he's, you know, up and away from everyone else. Phantom of the Opera, I suppose, ultimately. Yeah. And then ultimately he's fused with the machine, isn't he? That's the final thing. The final irony twist of the knife. Because I love that when he comes out and he goes, oh, yeah. And then when he comes the other side, he's got the fucking door in him and stuff. And it's the ultimate kind of irony. Like you've become the thing you created and that you obsessed about. We got about 2 minutes left. Oh. We whipped through that. I mean, I feel. It's great. It's great. It's really nice to sort of unpack all that. I don't know where else to go with it, really. I mean, it's one of those films where like you say, it's to go into the minutiae of it is to just really talk about the filmmaking, whereas the overall story is so nicely refined and simple, but yet full of layers and stuff like that. I think it's a great example of a Cronenberg film. Yeah. Because there are things, because I would say, for example, like Scanners and Videodrome aren't really structured as conventionally as this, and I think it's one of the more mainstream ones, and it is a remake of a horror, and it fits into that kind of cycle of remaking, you know, Invaders from Mars and, you know, Tobe Hooper and all these kind of 80s vintage sci-fi remakes, and this isn't really often discussed as one of those kind of remakes that surpasses the original, which in my view it does. I think it gets brought up, but yeah, like you say, it's usually the thing is what that's the people one. Yeah. And these are the movies that sit next to each other very, very nicely. Oh yeah, definitely. They're a great double bill. I mean, if you haven't seen that and you've watched this, spoilers, but also you really should. It's a wonderful movie, and I would like to get around to doing The Fly too, because it's a film that I think I can mount a very robust defence for, because people don't tend to like it. I think it's really excellent. Okay. So there. We are going to wrap up. 45 seconds left. We are on Discord, we are on Twitter, we are on Twitch, we are on Patreon, we are on Amazon Marketplace, we're on Redbubble. All kinds of stuff going on. Follow, like, subscribe, do what you got to do. We don't mind. Links in the description below. Yeah, links in the description below. Actually, throwing us a like is probably one of the best things you can do at the moment, because that helps bump us up the algorithm and into the recommended. The algorithm. Yeah. Super ethereal. That's your lot for this week. We will be back next Monday at 3 p.m. Look after yourselves. Have a good time. Go watch The Fly and The Fly 2. Bye. Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Valverde shop.